Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the paint node. And this is another one I kind of can't believe I didn't go over yet because it's a very well used node within Fusion. And the paint node is used to fix stuff, paint, do different paint strokes on footage, and it's vastly used in the VFX world. And not necessarily just to create VFX, but to prep footage for VFX or to fix footage when it comes to random stuff like planes in the background or boom mics coming in the shot or reflections, shadows from cast members that are being cast into the scene, even something like this, just this quick footage, just looking at it. If I was going to use it for production, there's a few things we'd do. One, if we were going to do set extension, we'd want to get rid of this little thing, so it's out of the way and not there, because it's not really useful for tracking, because you'd want something more off in the distance. This blue light right here is pretty distracting, so you'd want to get rid of that. Stuff like this little sign placard at the end, just a little distracting, doesn't need to be there. And probably the most distracting thing out of this entire scene is her belt, because if we zoom in, you can see the person filming. The reflection is in that belt. So this is all stuff you would use the paint node for, to get rid of all that stuff. Now this paint node is extremely complex. So let's go ahead and add a paint node. So shift space, paint, and I'm going to add the paint node. And if we look at the paint node, it's a little confusing, and people just start painting and wonder why they only have a single stroke and where their strokes are going. And I'm going to separate this into two, possibly three different node breakdowns. So today I'm going to go over all the different paint strokes, and then tomorrow I'll go over all the additional settings. And if it goes a little long, I'll do a third video actually doing use case where we actually remove some of this stuff like you would for production type stuff. So let's jump into it. By default, your paint node is set to multi-stroke strokes. And up here, this is where you actually change your paint strokes. So our first one is just a select button. And by default, like I said, multi-stroke is selected. And what multi-stroke is this a stroke that if we create a stroke, so I'm just gonna make one real quick. And if I go up to my modifiers, you notice we're getting these strokes that come down. And it says stroke 17 because I was using this node, so it remembers how many strokes you've done. So by default, it'll start back at stroke 17. If I was to shut the program down, start it back up, it would be stroke 1. But regardless, with multi-stroke, I can make tons of strokes, and it's only going to have one modifier. If I was to select our stroke button, every time I make a stroke, it's going to create a new stroke. So you can see this can get extremely memory intensive if we're using the stroke node. So if you're just doing short things and you just need a lot of little strokes that you do not need to edit, that's when you would use the multi-stroke. So let's go ahead and refresh our node here. So the multi-stroke lets you create multiple strokes. So this little dot, say I wanted to fix this little dot here that's on the ground, I could paint on top of it and create a stroke. But if I go to the next frame, you notice it's gone. So if I wanted to do frame by frame, I would have to go to the next frame, make a dot, go to the next frame, and so on, and just keep painting that specific thing out. And you wouldn't use white like this. I'm just going to leave these strokes on white so you can see what's happening right now. And tomorrow we'll go over the different cloning and different things, how you would use this to actually hide stuff like this. But you can see every single frame has a stroke on it. But if I was to, let's go create a new multi-stroke. Down here, I can change my stroke duration. So if I wanted my stroke to last the entire frame, we have got 190 frames. So I just change this to 190. I know it'd actually be 189, but just 190. So now if I create a stroke, that stroke is going to last the entire duration. Or if I wanted to last 30 frames, I just type 30 frames in over here and create my stroke. And now that one will last 30 frames and then disappear. So that's how the multi-stroke works. And like I said, this is not editable. So if I go to my select button and I select these strokes, you notice I'm not selecting any strokes really, and I'm unable to change my duration on it. I can't select the stroke and change my stroke size because it's non-editable. So that's the one thing with the multi-stroke. You cannot edit it. Our next one is clone multi-stroke. So if I select this clone multi-stroke, you notice we get a little red X. So if I hold my Alt button and click, now I can create a stroke and it covers it. But since I had this set on 30 frames, it's only going to last 30 frames. So that is the clone multi-stroke button. Then we have our actual stroke button. So let's refresh our node and make sure our stroke button is selected, and I can make a stroke. And I can just click once to make a dot, or I can draw a stroke if I want. So let's make a little dot. Now, once I've created a stroke using the stroke key and I go through, I can select that stroke. I can move the stroke now. Additionally, if I go to my stroke controls right here, I can select how many frames. And by default, your stroke button is going to write on all frames. And if I wanted to change how many frames, and again, we're going to go over this stuff in depth tomorrow, but if I want to change how many frames my stroke lasts, I can go to limited duration and I can change the duration. So if I only want 14 frames, you notice we got a little keyframe right here and it only lasts 14 frames. And as I change this duration, you can see that keyframe on the bottom is moving. It's sliding across. And it only goes up to 30 on the slider, but I can type in a number if I want and it'll go to that number. So that's how you would change the duration of your stroke. So let's go back to all frames. You notice it just got rid of that keyframe. Now additionally, on your stroke, this is editable. And if I bring over our little keyframe editor here, you notice there are no keyframes, or there is nothing to apply keyframes to. In order to be able to apply keyframes to our stroke, we need to select this Make Editable and then select Animate, or right click and select Animate. And if you notice, it just made a little keyframe for us. Now our little paint stroke is in our animation, so we can edit our animation within our spline editor. So let's slide that back over. Additionally, with your stroke selected, any other changes I need to make, I can make. So if I need to go to my brush controls and realized it wasn't large enough, now I can change the size of my brush. I can change the softness. I can even change the brush type if I wanted to. So I can apply all these changes to the stroke, whereas multi-stroke in the multi-stroke clone, I am not allowed to do that. So the stroke button allows you to edit. So that is the stroke type of paint stroke. So let's refresh. Our next type is using polygon stroke or polyline stroke. So I can create a polyline if I want and create a stroke. And once I create a polyline stroke, you notice we've got these additional menus up here. And these additional menus allow me to edit or change our polyline. So by default, it sits on click append. So if I have that selected, I can append, I can add more lines. If I select this draw append, it means I can edit my little lines. If I select this insert and modify shape, I can modify it. So if I click it, I can modify it, or I can add additional points on my lines. Right here, if I select this modify only, this means I'm not going to be able to add lines. Oops, let me select. I can only modify my points. If I select this done button, it's going to lock my polygon line. That way I can't edit it anymore and I don't accidentally select it. So if I select this done button, you notice I can no longer, even if I select it, I can no longer change anything. And to be able to undo this done button, you have to click back onto the modify lines and it'll unlock that. Right here, I can select to close the polygon, so it'll automatically close it. I can click it to do it and undo it. This will smooth any selected points out. So if you notice, we've got this point, which is not quite smooth. So if I select smooth, it's going to round it off. Select smooth, it's going to round it off. Or I can select this and change it to linear. This will allow me to select all points just by the click of a button. This will just show or hide my actual points. This button will show or hide my handles. And if I want to create a shape box to edit the entire thing all at once, I can select this shape box. And now I can come in here and edit my entire curve. And if I want to delete points, I can select a point I want to delete. So I can select this point and select this little delete points. Now this next selection is to reduce points. So if I go back to my little draw append right here, if I draw append, I can actually draw like a pencil and continue to append as I draw just like a pencil. But if you notice, it creates hundreds and hundreds of little points. So if I wanted to reduce these points just to the points necessary to maintain these curves, I can select this, select my reduce points, and it's going to come up with this little pop-up. So I can minimize my points by dragging it down, or I can increase it by dragging it up. And once I hit OK, it reduces those points to the minimum amount of points necessary to somewhat maintain that curve. Now under Publish menu, let's go ahead and actually delete all of our points. And let's use this little bit as an example. So let's move this over. And let's say I wanted to create a little polyline to get rid of this. So I could create a line. And there's our little line to get rid of that, even though it's not perfect. I could come in here and increase my brush stroke size to increase it. And let's say I wanted to track that little shape in the background there. So I could initially do this track and have a track ready for it, but I can also do it within this node. So if I select this publish points, we've got the option to publish to a path, publish to our XY path, or we can publish to an IntelliTracker or publish to a point tracker. So I want to make sure I select which point I want to do that to. So I'm going to go ahead and select this bottom point. Go up here and publish to IntelliTracker. And if you notice, it just created a new tracker located on that point. So if we connect our media and I go to our tracker, I can update this location here. Say, bring it down here. I want to track that bit right there. So if I track forward, we've got that tracked. So now if I go back to our little line here, you notice that point is tracked to that point. So if I play this back, you notice it's connected to our little tracker there. But unlike some other tracks, when you do it this way, if I was to disconnect this track, it's going to stop our little track. So you want to make sure you leave that connected to your input so it maintains that track. So same with the top point. I can go here, publish to IntelliTracker, and it's going to give us another track. But if I go here, connect it, let's look at this track. Let's make sure this is on the top here. And I can track forward and backward. So now if I look at our little paint node, they're both tracked to that little tower there. Now, additionally, up here, we have the ability to make points follow nearby published points. So for example, if I select this and I needed to add another line in here or another point. So if I push play, you notice our point is no longer following that. If I select this, make points follow, and push play, it's going to follow those tracks. Now, Roto Assist is a separate thing, so you don't want to select Roto Assist once you have a polygon line. So we want to make a new one. So let's say we want to rotoscope this little line. I can select it. It's going to give us a little yellow outline. I select my next one. It'll give us a little yellow outline. My next one, and my next one. And to be able to turn this into an actual stroke or a paint stroke, I just uncheck this line, and now we've got a little line. Now, just remember, it's not tracked to it. That's just whatever frame we were on. That's where it rotoscoped out. So let's go ahead and delete our trackers. I'm actually going to delete our paint node, and I'm going to add another paint node, a fresh one. And let's talk about these little circles here in the rectangle. And I don't know why, but this is a little odd. So if I go to my modifiers, right now we just have multi-stroke because by default it's creating our multi-stroke. If I select this circle and I go to my modifiers, you see it created a circle. But if I create a actual circle, it's creating a second circle for some reason. So it didn't used to do this. I don't know why it does that now, but you can create circles and you can edit it afterwards. And the same goes with your rectangle shape. If I wanted to create a rectangle shape, I could create a rectangle shape, create multiple rectangle shapes if I want. So let's refresh. So next up, we have these three little clone settings right here. And we've got clone polyline, clone ellipse, and clone rectangle, and they all work the same, just different shapes. So if I click this clone polyline, you notice we get all the same polyline info, but I can create a polyline here. And by default, it's really not going to do much, but if I deselect it and then find it again, you notice we get this little green line. And if I say show source, it's going to show our source. Now, if I take our little display here and I move this, you notice it's moving my original polyline clone. So if I show source, you can see where that clone is right there. So I can re-edit my clone and it's going to re-clone that. If I hit play, you can see it's just re-cloning everything. So I can take all these people and just kind of re-clone them across my entire frame. And the same goes with the circle. So if I want to do a clone circle, I could create a circle here. And if I move it, you can see we're still cloning that area right there. If I say show source, you can see our source, and I can move our source around if I want. Same with my little square clone. So if I select a square clone and I create one, I can take this, move it over my little tower there. And now I've got our tower hidden-ish. So let's refresh this node. And then we've got a fill button right here. So if I select my fill button and I select what I want to fill, it's going to create this fill here. And if I go back over here and select my fill, I can edit my range. I can change the softness. If I want to change the color up, I can change the color up. And if I want to change my alpha there, If I look at our alpha, you notice it's all white. It's all set to 1, but I can remove that too if I want. So let's refresh. And then lastly, we have this group button. So if I'm using multi-strokes and I have all these different strokes going on, if I go here and I select all my strokes, I can select the group button. Now all those strokes are grouped together. And we can change our angle. We can change the size too. And this is what you would use to right click and connect to any trackers that you had to track all those multi-stroke points that you remember aren't animatable. But this is how you would set them to a track. So that is the paint stroke portion of the paint node. And as you can see, this is going kind of long. So tomorrow we're going to go over all the individual settings within our inspector for these paint strokes. And then probably on the third day, if I don't do it tomorrow, I'll do it a third part, and we'll sit here and we'll actually edit and do all this stuff like we normally do using the paint node. So I will see you in the next node breakdown.